right, Coach. Hey, thanks for joining me today on this SimpleCoach Coach interview. Great to see you. I have a question for you right out of the gate. Did you finish your deck?
I did, and it looks
Nice.
great.
Wow.
How about yours?
Mine is all done, but the railings, because of course, I'm not so simple. I am putting wire railings across. And so I have to order them, and I forget it. I just don't want to do it in the cold. So yes, it's there, just not the railings.
Yeah, we got lucky. We did the trucks. We spent a little bit to get
Uh-huh.
that done, but we also got the concrete poured next to the deck too, which we didn't think was going to happen till spring. So we
Uh-huh.
overachieved. We got it done, and we're excited
Wow.
for when the weather breaks. Yeah.
This interview's done. I just feel shamed now. I still have a pile of junk out back. My patios aren't done. Anyhow, it's going to be a few years. We'll be talking about this. You'll be retiring. I'll be like, I just finished. Hey, also, I don't know what you're trying to do. I mean, between the hat, the scarf, golf tees and chips. I mean, are you trying to get me to like you? And John Carroll and cheer you guys on? Because let me tell you something, it's working.
Just little by little,
Yeah.
just putting that olive branch out there, and trying to recruit you just a little bit to our side. Not fully. I know you're a Mount guy, and
Yeah.
right, you got to cheer for them and support them, rightfully so. But hoping to get a little more
I'm
John Carroll love,
I'm getting there. I'm getting there. You're succeeding very well. I'm wearing a hat, who would have thunk it? I'm totally gonna get hate email now. It's just a guarantee. I'm gonna be like, my buddies are gonna be like, what are you doing, man? You gotta stop. No, but thank you. That was so kind of you. I mean, I was talking to the coach of Augsburg yesterday, and I get all these scarves. So I'm figuring out a way to hang them so yours will be prominent. Again, like I said, sometimes football season rolls around, it might burn my eyes a little bit, but that's okay. That's okay. You're a good guy, so I'll do it for you. Hey, so anyhow, thanks a lot. Hey, let me just come out of the gate and ask you, how do you think your season went? If somebody's asking you, you're thinking about 2022 and everything you've dealt with and wins, losses, all that kind of stuff. How do you think it went?
I think it went very well, truly. Anytime you come off of running the Sweet 16, that many seniors, kind of two senior classes combined because of COVID, and you have that much turnover in your roster. We had lost 27 members of the team from the year prior to this year.
Wow.
And you add all the new players that come in, and the guys who were there probably are in a little different roles in terms of leadership and positions and stuff like that. I think they did very well. I was really proud of them. I think the mentality has changed. I don't think they're very happy with the season. I kind of had to remind them in our year end of all the things they accomplished, because I think they're at the point now where they have very realistic high goals that they're working for every day. I'm proud that they want more and they're not satisfied, but they also need to be proud of their accomplishments, and that's something I'm trying to remind them of. But truthfully, I knew it was going to be a tough year in terms of transition. I wasn't concerned about the talent. I knew we had that, but that's a lot of guys to lose and a lot of guys to add, and making that work and mesh. And on top of it, playing a new system that we had never played in my 21 years. We had to introduce
Mm-hmm.
that and build it from the ground up. But we were confident in the boys and their talent, and we knew they had it in them. So if I'm being honest with you, I think we're way farther ahead than I probably originally anticipated or thought we would be, based on just all the criteria I just listed, the variables in
Mm-hmm.
the equation.
Were you expecting, I don't want to say a down year, because down year for you guys is some other program's success, right? Were you expecting somewhat of a down year because of last year? I mean, I know you guys carry a big roster, so
Mm-hmm.
27 isn't your entire roster. But were you expecting it to be a lot tougher than it turned out to be?
I was not expecting a down year. I was expecting a much larger learning curve,
Mm-hmm.
and just thought it would take a lot longer for things to click, if that makes any
Mm,
sense. And
yeah.
it's a credit to the players. I think they knew the task in front of them. I think they knew there was a pretty new team, and that they had to really buy into the learning aspect of it, especially when you're installing a new system like that. And they truly passed with flying colors. So um, I think, like I said, we're very ahead of where I thought we would be. Getting towards the end of that year, and that kind of turnover, and the future is very bright. We were a very young squad last year. I think I'm probably going to mess this up. This is on memory. I think we started when everyone was healthy, 2 freshmen, 8 sophomores, and 1 fifth year, something, or 1 senior, something
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Wow.
So again, just on paper, that's pretty young.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I think the guys did really well. Future is bright, and they're very
Mm-hmm.
excited to get back on the field.
So your fifth year is gone. So does that mean theoretically you could have 10, 8 juniors and 2 sophomores if everything stays the same on
Yeah,
your starting? Wow.
yeah, I think that
Yeah.
that sounds right.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, I was looking at our roster the other day as I am getting prepared here for spring stuff and fall and
Mm-hmm.
what have you. And if I remember correctly, I think we only have 3 seniors on the roster next year too. So it's, like I said, it's a pretty young team.
Wow. Wow. Then flying colors to you guys. Like I had no
Yeah,
idea. I shouldn't looked at the roster, but I just it goes over my head sometimes. And when I look at, I'm better looking at his schedule. And I mean, knowing that how young you were coming off of that big impactful team you had in 2021, I mean that's really impressive to get to the second round of the NCAA's, and that's pretty remarkable. So
yeah. The other thing I would say too is I'm not naive to the fact in 2021 we were probably the veteran team in the conference. We had a lot of
mm-hmm.
fifth years and regular
Yeah,
seniors and things like that. And I think it kind of flipped on us. I think last year we went from the veteran team to like one of the youngest teams.
youngest,
I think
yeah.
Capital's probably in that equation with us. Capital was really young last year and very, very good in my opinion. I think Capital is a dark horse in our conference,
Mm-hmm.
100%, and a dark horse in a positive way. I think they're
Yeah,
always
yeah.
are always very good. Allen's a great coach, but last year the conference seemed to be very veteran. I feel like every time we went to the scouting report, this team had 5 senior starters and 7 senior starters and 6 senior starters, and then you looked at ours, and I was like, man, we are the young pups on
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
conference right now. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how things move forward here in the next year or two as the COVID stuff kind of dies out in terms of the extra eligibility and things kind
Yeah,
of go
yeah,
back to
yeah.
normal.
Go normal, right? That's what I think is starting to happen, right? Like it's just not weed out. That's a terrible word, but you're starting to funnel out the guys who had the extra year and all this kind of the funkiness from COVID. So, all right. So I have to ask because you brought it up, not me, and I would love to ask you. Say, hey, so this new system you've implemented, what is it? I'm not sure you're going to want to answer that question, which is fine. But I'll ask. I'll ask if, like, what compelled you to make changes to a system that you'd seen a lot of success that, over the last 21 years from.
Sure. I First and foremost, I'm always looking for a way to get better in every facet of the program, no matter how successful it is. Uh, I'm I'm not a it's not broke, don't fix it guy all the time. Like, obviously, some stuff does work and what have you, but we're always experimenting to see what we can do. And it kind of goes back to a comment I made in our first interview. I always look to build a formation based on, are you playing with a 3-back or are you playing with a 4-back? And I kind of go from there, right? And
Mm-hmm.
we just really felt as a coaching staff, we had some pretty special talent that were primarily center backs that, we could
Mm-hmm.
have transitioned them a little more into outside backs. But I think that was the first trigger that we
Mm-hmm.
felt 5, 6, 7 deep at that position of guys who could play. And we were happy with that.
Mm-hmm.
And then it turned into, well, what does the midfield and forward situation look like? Now,
Mm-hmm.
again, I'm not giving away state secrets, like you said, but I don't think I even am if I say it, because I think if you ask me what system we play, I would give you one answer. I think if you ask our assistant coach, he would give you another answer, and so on and so forth. And the reason why that is once they get on the field, there really is no formation. They just kind of understand where to go, when to go. how to cover.
Mm,
Obviously, our defensive principles and concepts are pretty straightforward.
yeah.
I hate using the word micromanage, but we do micromanage that. But
Mm,
offensively, they kind of have the freedom to go do what they do, and I think that's again a credit to the players that they're that talented and have
yeah.
that high of a soccer IQ. So when you look at it on a whiteboard, it's going to look one way, but the reality is, no matter what numbers I tell you after the three, everyone on
Yeah.
my program will probably give you a different answer as
Different
to what
answer.
it is. It's more about they understand what they have to do, and they have
Hmm.
the freedom offensively to move where they need to move to make it work.
That's huge. And like I mentioned, I talked to the Augsburg coach yesterday, and we were talking about that very thing. And there's something to be said about allowing players, you give them the rules of the road and just say, hey, when you're out there, this is the sort of thing you have to be looking at. And then they get to make the decisions based on how the play develops rather than being barked at from the sideline. And you see talented teams that, um, if they give that freedom to the players, they manage to figure it out, right? Like they figure out what they got to do, how the game is done. Other teams are so tied into the way they play that you can see them looking over to the sideline. What do we, when it's not working? Like, what do we do? What do we do? Like, because they don't have that freedom and that freedom of thought on the field. So I'm a big fan of that, right? Like I said, ideally you just sit on the sidelines and be like, I've done everything I can. It's up to them now, right? So
Yeah, and the cool thing in the progression of that is, as there's more film out there and you get deeper in the season, whether it's October in the OAC or the national tournament, teams start trying to game plan to take away certain things within it. And the thing I
mm-hmm.
just really liked about what we had, and hopefully we'll use going forward, is that you can pick and choose what you want to do, but we have an answer for it. Now,
Yeah,
can we execute it, and are we good enough on the day to get it done? That's always a question that needs to be answered. But I think they have the solutions in the toolbox to do
mm-hmm.
that, and I think that's a very exciting thing for the guys, because I think they saw, as we progress through the formation, that they have a lot of flexibility and
Yeah,
autonomy, to do what they got to do. And truthfully, what I told them in our end of the year meeting was, if we're looking at 100% timeline, 0 to 100, I think we're only 60, 70% of the way there, of the possibilities within it, which again, I think is a higher number than I thought we would have been
yeah,
once we got to November. So the sky's the limit for these guys. I think they know that, and it's a very exciting time to be a Blue Streak.
yeah. In relative to your other teams that as since you've been associated with John Carroll, relative to those other teams, how would you? It sounds like you're really high on this group. So how would you stack them versus? I hate to do that, like because different
Yeah,
circumstances, all that kind of stuff. But how would you rank them based on what you know and what you're seeing and the progress they're making and all that compared to those other teams that brought you success?
yeah. I mean, this past fall, excuse me, I think it was the most talented team we've ever had in our school's history, and I mean that. And that is not something I came up with. That is something that was told to me by the guys who had left the program the year before. They couldn't like, they knew how much talent walked out the door, and they
Uh huh.
couldn't believe how much talent walked in. Uh,
Yeah.
I'm going to put Will Turretin on the spot, our three-time All-American. He called me up. He watches all the games. He's like, "You guys are better than we were last year." I'm like,
Uh huh.
on talent-wise, we are, but we didn't have the experience and
Yeah.
leadership
That's a big
at that
deal.
point that
Yeah.
was built, right. And
Yeah.
that's where, again, guys like Will Turretin, Michael Edelman, Matt Nigro,
Yeah.
veterans, they figure out how to win games. And that was a challenge our group needed to sort out, because yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you can be as talented as you want, but if you don't know how to win,
Yeah.
or you don't understand the process,
Yeah.
that doesn't mean anything. But no, I mean it. I think last year's team was the most talented team in our school's history, and I think
Mm-hmm.
this fall has the potential to trump that as well.
Wow. Wow, that's pretty. I mean, that's pretty serious statement, right? Like, that's. I mean, great for you guys. Um, I mean, this is a terrible question to ask for of you, but like, I mean, is this a like a Final Four team? Not this fall. Maybe this fall. Maybe when they in that next 2 years. Is that something you could like legitimately envision?
Absolutely. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think that's anyone who knows anyone from our program, that's our mentality.
yeah.
Yeah, as simple as that.
Wow.
I think the thing that's special about us here at Carroll is that we know there are so many steps that need to happen before we get there. And what I'm referencing is the Ohio Athletic Conference. It's one of the
Yeah.
best conferences, in my opinion, in the country. It's
Hmm.
getting better every year. And we have a lot to work to do there to get to where we want to go. So we
Hmm.
take that very seriously before we even, get our minds in terms of, what's going to happen in the national
Yeah.
tournament if we're lucky enough to be there. But no, yeah, I would say that I feel very confident, and I think that's kind of where we're at as a program and what our goals are and what we're working towards. And
Yeah.
the boys' effort reflects the goal. This is not just
Hmm.
they say it; that they're working towards it. So, yeah, I think I don't view it as a bullseye or pressure. I think that's just a standard, and for us, our standard is our standard, and those are the
Hmm.
rules we want to live by.
Yeah. So I watched a lot of your games in the fall, and I liked the way you played. I thought you're right. I think you have talent. I just don't have the historical comparison. Like, are you guys that good or that sort of thing? But just going back to the OAC, because I agree with you. I think it's probably underrated as a conference. And I watched a lot of OAC games, and top to bottom, I thought teams were it was very competitive. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
And team different styles, different all that kind of thing, meshing in. So maybe give me a perspective on the OAC from your standpoint and how it sort of played out. And again, Ohio Northern, you know, Otterbein, Wilmington.
Yeah, again, I think it was a very veteran conference this year. Battles every time you go out there, right? Again,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't matter the records when you go into an OAC game. It's always going to be a battle, and we definitely respect our opponents very much, and we take that
Mm-hmm.
very seriously. But you know, I'll start off on the bat. Off the bat, Northern had a great year, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Chris is doing a great job there. I think the world of him and his staff and his program. They're always going to be national tournament contenders, and they had a great run to the Sweet 16, and I had a fantastic season. Then you have Otterbein, who I think was the most underrated team in our conference.
Yeah.
They were really, really, really good.
Really talented.
I mean, Will Isaac's a stud.
Yeah.
Gabe Chirac, and I can go down the line of how good they are, and
Mm-hmm.
Jason does a great job with them as well. I think, I mean, if they got in the national tournament, they would have made some noise. They're tough to beat. They're very,
Yeah.
very good. And then I can go. Wilmington had a great year, made it to the final. Um, Teams are improving. I mentioned Capital earlier. Joe always does a great job at Marietta. It's just a very good conference, and
Yeah.
I think it's only getting bigger and better. I think the coaches are they're talented, and they have great programs that are every year getting better and improving. So it's a great situation to be in as a conference overall. A thing that we all talk about a lot is as peers is that we really do root for one another, because the
Mm-hmm.
better our conference is, the better off our program's
Yeah.
going to be, and so on and so forth. So for us, again, Mount had another huge jump in the program as Coach Krems is putting his stamp on the school and stuff like that. So it's great. It's great to see everyone on that
Yeah.
trajectory and really building to something bigger and better to put us in that conversation as one of the top conferences in the country.
I mean, I don't say this lightly, and I don't. Right. I mean, the NESCAC is the NESCAC, right? Let's not put that in that cat. But there was many of the games I watched sort of had that feel where these are. It doesn't matter the result. They're two great teams representing going at each other, and just sort of like the NESCAC, like rules are thrown out the door. You're just battling to get a win, right? And it almost felt like that again, at least in the games that I watched. And and it was each and every game, no matter where they were, whatever the teams were. It would just it just struck me as wow, this is really has a NESCAC feel to it.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, for example, BW, like they always play us so tough. Reed is a
Yeah,
great tactician, and
yeah,
always has a good game plan for when they play against like I can go top to bottom and talk about every school about how I thought Coach Bloom did a great job with Muskingum. I thought, you know, he had only been there for days before he started preseason with those guys, and they were competitive. I mean, it's a great situation to be in. Honestly, I'm very excited. You know, I think the conference is just moving in the right direction, and I think it's a credit to the coaches and the players, and it's a very exciting time to be in the OAC for sure.
All right, so just shifting gears a little bit. You only had one tie, which was against Case, which Case is really good too. I think Coach Poe is just starting to get them into into the rhythm and how he wants them to play. But I was really impressed with them. And then you went into OT against Otterbein in the semifinals. But from the tie perspective, for the overtime perspective, do you think it was a positive not having overtimes? You didn't have many of them, but did you like the fact that there was not going to be an overtime and that there was time certain, right? Like 90 minutes. We got 90 minutes to prove ourselves.
Right. You're right in the fact that it didn't affect us that much this past season, but I am definitely not a fan of the new setup. I watch all your interviews. I'm a SimpleCoach subscription person, so
you know what? I'm rooting for John Carroll now. Forget it. Doesn't matter. Mount who?
But you know, it goes into the conversations you've been having with the coaches about these NCAA decisions in terms of player safety and whatever. And I'm like, okay, if you care about the overtime stuff and the extra 20 minutes that happens randomly, then why don't you give us a longer preseason so we can actually ramp these players up properly and not give them 12 days to figure it out, and we throw them on a field where they have 2 games in 3 days or 2 games in 2 days. So for me, it's just very hypocritical. You know, if we want to go down the player safety route, which I'm 100% in agreement with, and I'm all on board for player safety, then be consistent, right? So if you want to take away the overtime moments, which again are some of the moments that we all remember from our careers, the good and the bad, then do it in other areas. And I know Coach Bianco down at Denison is our leader in that regard of pushing that agenda. And I don't know if you saw his tweet where he really laid out all of the different inequities and of all these things, and it's just a very frustrating thing. So again, whether or not that was the case, I wouldn't like the overtime rule. But if we're going to go down that path as the NCAA, let's be consistent with it and properly do it then.
Yeah, I'm with you there, right? Like, because realistically, the no OTs, like, how did that impact you? Well, it didn't. I mean, you saved 20 minutes, right? Like, because the Otterbein game, you would have gone to overtime no matter what, right? Because it was the conference tournament, so you only saved your guys 20 minutes. But you're still doing the daily grind, right? Like that 2-day grind, you know. And I've said, same to you. Like, if that's the concern, player safety, player load, that is the concern. To me, the overtime is just sort of like almost like the simplest, easiest thing to do that doesn't impact much of anything. Like, if you're really concerned about that, you have to figure out a way to stretch the season. And I like less games? I don't know. Like, maybe that's how you do it. But then that Twitter, and maybe I'll see if I can't figure out a way to post it down below. But
it's excellent. Excellent.
Coach Bianco's Twitter feed, or whatever they call those things, I'm not verbose on that, but I mean, it outlines, and you're like, to me, the glaring one, the one that first stood out is you guys get 72 days and lacrosse gets 101 or something, like some number like that. And you're like, we're not talking days differences. We're talking an entire month. To me, like, how is that? And I don't, right? to me, I look at lacrosse and I look at soccer, and it's very similar athletically, right? Like, doesn't matter. They're not kicking the ball. They're throwing, they got the sticks and all that stuff, but they're doing the running. They're making the contacts. They're playing for 90 minutes or roughly whatever it ends up being. How's that happen?
I think the craziest thing that really opened my eyes, and again, there's a lot of great information in that tweet, that thread he made, but it essentially over a 4-year player career gives you a whole nother season that we don't have in men's and women's soccer.
Yeah. Yeah.
When you add up the 4 years overall.
Totally. That was the other
Right.
one. I'm like doing the math. I'm like, they get a 5th year for all intents and purposes. Lacrosse, and I don't mean to pick on lacrosse. I'm a big fan of lacrosse, but they get 5 seasons compared to soccer's 4. Like, that to me is bonkers, right? Like, you're right.
And it boils down to, they gave us the extra 8 days of the spring, which I will take every type of contact I can have with our guys. But the reality is, it didn't cost them money.
No, and I think that's it.
If there's money associated, then all of a sudden player safety is not a good idea anymore, which is bogus for me. But again, the boys are excited to train 24 times, but the reality is they want to play. You can only go train so much. They want to go compete, and they want to go compete against somebody else. So if you would have told me, hey, can you have 8 more days of training or 2 more games? I think every D3 player in America is going to want to play 2 more games.
Absolutely. I had a coach who always used to say, games are rewards to the work you do during the week, right? So you're training, you play a game, that's your reward for that. And it's sort of like, hey, it's hard enough just to do preseason knowing that you're a week and a half or whatever from a preseason game, right? Like, it's a drag psychologically. You're like, when are we just going to get to play and just sort of check it out? So to me, it's like, in the spring, I'm like, that there's a great acknowledge, like you said, cost nothing for anybody. The problem is that, well, you should have given more games, because now you're playing 26 days and you have one game, one day, however it's defined, right? Basically, you get one game over 26 days. Like, I'd get bored with that. But frankly, I'd be like, are you kidding me? Like, this is...
And that's what I'm saying. D3 men's soccer players, women's soccer players, they want to compete. They want to play, and trust me, we love coaching, and I'm sure there's every coach in America would love to go train every day and do all these things. But the reality is the kids want to play, and the one play date is tough. And, in this region of the country, you're trying to sort out that kind of stuff in the first place just because of weather. But this year we're going to play Akron on April 1st. We're trying to make it. We're really excited that Coach Mbeck reached out to us for that opportunity. Our boys are really excited, but you're trying to take that one game and make it into something really big and powerful, because you only get one, and you don't want to go and just do what you would have done anyways, kind of thing. So I'm not saying it puts pressure on us to find something special, but you are trying to make it a marquee thing that the guys really get excited to do, because they only do get one of them.
I mean, you don't want to scrimmage mount in the in the spring,
right.
That you're right. That's a great point. That's great, though. I hear their stadium field is just outrageous. So
very cool.
Maybe I can get my grades up and sign with you guys. Hey, so you went 16-5-1. You won the OAC tournament by, like I said, beating a really good Wilmington team. I'm curious, at the beginning of every season, I mean, is your goal the tournament final? I mean, you could, right? I know, and I ask this because, Mount Union football talks about their first goal is win the OAC. That's their level, right? And we're going to win the OAC. That's their level. I wonder if you have the same thing in your mind.
I'm going to say something the first time in my entire life right now. I 100% agree with Mount Football.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is recorded.
Yeah. See, Olive Branch. I'm trying here.
Oh, you're trying.
Yeah.
Go John Carroll. Blue
Yeah.
streaks all the way.
No, I think Mount Football, again, they're the standard, right, in
Mhm.
D3 football, but that's the right mentality, in my opinion.
Yeah.
You can't just go from A to Z. You have to take care of all the letters in between it in your
Yeah.
process. And for us, the OAC is a huge thing for our program, our athletic
Yeah.
department, our boys. Um, the bright lights come on, and they wanna be at that stage. They wanna be in
Yeah.
the OAC tournament. They wanna be in the final. I think that is a highlight of players' careers when they get to
Yeah.
do that. No matter what school they're in, you always remember playing in a final for a trophy and
Yeah.
things like that. So no, we take that very seriously. It means a lot to us.
Yeah.
We do everything we can to make sure we are where we're supposed to be at that time of the year, which is hopefully in that
Yeah.
playoff and in that final. And then, the way we kind of look at it is once the national tournament comes, if we are selected as whether it be an at-large or an automatic
Yeah.
qualifier, whatever, we just want to get in. We don't care how. Then it's kind of a whole new season. The rules
Yeah.
kind of go out the window, and you
You
got to
do.
figure it
Yeah.
out.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah.
win or go home, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I don't think that's a bad thing. Like again, I'm talking to you in the context of John Carroll. So your history, your success, all that kind of, it's fair to have a higher standard, right? Like Paul University, like my goal might be, I want to beat one of the best teams, and I think five wins, right? That's the level, and it's a realistic one. And like I said, I think that's perfectly fine to be like tournament. And I'm sure there are teams. I'm sure Amherst and Chicago. Success only means getting to that Final Four and competing for the trophy, right? Like, and that's fair too, because that's okay. Realistically, this is where we're at. So even though I know trying to be like, look, it's just game by game, we got to deliver and all that kind of stuff. But okay, so for the NCAA's, you traveled to Baltimore. I love this game, by the way. I just love the storyline of the game. But you went to Baltimore, you beat Scranton, and then you had a rematch with Johns Hopkins of the Snow Bowl from 2 years ago. And let me just what were your thoughts going into that game? Because Johns Hopkins, I thought, was stepped it up a level in their game this year.
Yeah, I felt great going into the game, if I'm being honest.
Mm-hmm.
We had really clicked. I believe in the semifinal of the OAC, we scored 2 goals. The final, we had 4. That game against Scranton on
Scranton, you had
Saturday night,
3.
we had
Yeah,
3. So
yeah,
from an offensive standpoint, we were really clicking, and boys felt good. We were able to rest a lot of guys in the Scranton game because we were fortunate to get out early in that game and have a 3-0
mm-hmm.
lead at halftime. So we felt great going into the game. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I am not naive. I watched Johns Hopkins all year. I didn't need to scout them. I had already seen a bunch of their games. Honestly, I'm a huge fan of Craig
Oh,
and
he's a
William.
yeah.
I think their program is tremendous. I think they play soccer the right way. They're
Mm-hmm.
great competitors, all the above. So I knew that they were a Final Four Elite Eight caliber
Yeah,
team. There was no doubt about it. I think that the game plan was sound. I think we were prepared. I think we were rested. There was no excuses. We didn't perform, and they kicked our butts.
mm-hmm.
There's no other way to say it. I think the first 10, 15 minutes, we were kind of all over them, and I think it was working. And Craig and his staff did a great job of adjusting, and him and I actually spoke about that a little bit when I saw him down at the ECNL event of some of the
Uh-huh.
stuff that him and I were both thinking about and doing in the game. But I think it came down to they won the 1v1 battles.
Yeah,
Um, they won the matchups they needed to win, and we definitely shot ourselves in the foot a couple times to give them some chances they probably didn't deserve to get. And when
mm-hmm.
you give a quality team at that kind of
Oh,
caliber chances, they're going to punish you, and they did.
yeah,
And they deserved to win that game 3-0. I'm not
yeah.
the I'm forgetting what. moral victory guy. I'm not that
Yeah.
guy. I tell it like it is, and
Yeah.
they kicked our butts. There's no other way
Yeah.
to say it. And they were a really crazy free kick and then a penalty kick away from going to the Final Four. And that's
Yeah.
I really think they were
Yeah.
that caliber of a team.
I totally like when they towards the end of the season, I started thinking like there's these guys have the they have the distance in them. They can go to the and who knows if they get paired up right, all those things fall up right. They're like it could have been a Johns Hopkins Chicago final, right? Like again,
Yeah,
you could have legitimate or John. I've said or John Carroll, Johns Hopkins, Chicago, Johns Hopkins, Messiah. Like I could have totally like I could have had that conversation with people
yeah,
because I thought they were that good and they were looking lethal on the attack. Like you
absolutely.
said, exploiting. I don't want to call them mistakes, but just taking advantage of those moments where guys aren't as sharp as they should be, and then to just pounce on it, and you get 2 goals on you, and you're done.
Yeah,
Um,
and again, they're very talented, but there are some other things that are important. They want revenge. They lost the year before.
yeah, yeah,
They had
yeah,
they wanted us, and I would too if I were them, right?
yeah.
That's what competitors do. They want a rematch,
Hmm.
and they want to avenge themselves or whatever
Yeah,
you
yeah,
call
yeah,
it. They're playing at home in front of their home crowd, like,
yeah,
and our players, we made them well aware, like, hey, like these guys, they want revenge. And
yeah,
you would too if you were them,
yeah,
and
yeah, yeah,
I just think they're class. I mean, I just think they're
yeah,
such a good program, and
yeah,
they play soccer so beautifully, and
yeah,
I can't say enough nice things about Johns Hopkins, Craig, and the
yeah,
program. And
yeah,
I wish we had a better performance that day. Like I said, after the 2 weeks of scoring goals and playing well, and it was unfortunate that that was our off night. And again, that's a credit to them. I think a big
hmm,
part of how well they played for
hmm,
kind of forced us to not play as well. And like I said, I'm
hmm,
not trying to take any credit away from them. They deserve
yeah,
every ounce of it. But I think our boys know that we didn't show up that night the correct way,
yeah,
and
yeah,
we got punished for it.
yeah. Do you think it was because they were young?
I do think the moment had
The
it
moment was a
was a
little
factor.
too big for them, maybe.
Maybe not too big, but I don't think they understood it fully.
Hmm.
Again, especially when you talk about 2 games in 2 days, the travel, you're playing at their place, the revenge factor, all these things, it adds up. And again, when you have that talented of a group and that history of a program, it's a tall task. It
Yeah,
was going to be tough to go win
yeah,
that game, but we thought we were capable of it. We thought we were peaking at the right time and all those things.
yeah.
But experience, it's a huge thing.
Huge thing. You're
Yeah,
right. Well, and especially the guys you did lose who were the absolute leaders in 2021, and then it's a void, right? Because they're not there, and their personality isn't there, and their all that presence. That I could totally see that being the disadvantage that you were dealing with in that game against Hopkins because you almost needed those guys like superhero dudes out there who were going to make it happen one way or the other because
absolutely. And
they were ready for it.
no doubt. And our seniors did a great job of leading
Yeah,
this year. And I want to make sure they get the credit because it's a tough thing to come off of
yeah,
that kind of run and you lose that many guys. They were tasked with a nearly impossible kind of
yeah,
situation with that kind of turnover. It's a most turnover easily in my
yeah,
21 years as the program. So what they were able to do to get us as far as we were in our own path in that timeline I
hmm,
was referring to earlier was pretty special because they
yeah,
were up against it. Guys are meeting each other on the first day of captain's camps and stuff like that, and you're trying to gel these guys. And
yeah,
they were definitely asked to do something that probably no one's ever been asked to do in our program before, and I think they did a really good job.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and they're only going to mature, right? Like the at least your guys, they're going to just mature. Now they know. Again, it's sometimes with younger guys, it's just about how high can you go? Okay. Now you just sort I know what that's like. What do I get to the next level? And it just sounds like that's you need that time for those sophomores and those freshmen to just sort of come up because now they've been there. They know what it's like, and they know, probably more importantly, they know what they have to bring, especially because at that level, every game is hard, right? And then you go up against Johns Hopkins, right? You have to be you have to be on your game 100%. And that doesn't even guarantee anything, right? Like,
Right.
you know what I mean? You have to
Right.
play really great, and you could still be on the wrong end of the scoreboard because you're playing against such good quality opponents. I'm a big fan as well. Craig, I think, is one of the great guys, great coach. Has a real clear sense of what he wants to do. All right, so just a couple more questions. I'll let you get on with your day. What are your what do you look to accomplish in the spring? And it, I guess it might be different since you mentioned the new system and sort of how you look to play. Like what are you looking to get out of the spring to set yourself up for the fall?
Yeah, I think we're in a little different of a spring because we're in that window where we do our international trip. So we'll be going to England
Oh,
here for spring break. But the guys have been
and you
training
didn't
three.
tell me? Like
Yes,
I have
sorry.
to get clothes. Like I got to pack.
Yeah, we've been training 3 times. Well, they've been training 3 times a week. They're taking it very seriously. They know that not only do they need to train to get ready for England, they need to get trained to get ready for Akron as
Yeah,
well, right? So
yeah.
there's a lot of motivation this
Hmm.
spring outside of just the goals and the standards and the stuff like that. Going to play 3 exhibition games and then your spring game. There's a
Yeah,
lot on the line just from a personal standpoint there that they want
yeah,
to get ready for. So I'm very excited about the way the spring kind of plays out for us because I do think them taking the initiative to have these trainings on their own, and then we get to walk into a great experience in England, where we get to be tourists a little bit and have some fun and,
yeah,
and check out.
yeah,
One thing we got really lucky with is that we got Champions League tickets to Chelsea Dortmund in the second leg. So we'll be going to that as a team. So we're really pumped about that. So I think there's a lot of stuff like that that's just very exciting.
yeah,
Like I said, then we come back for that little mini camp before we play Akron. But um, yeah, we're pushing forward as hard as we can, these types of preparations because we know the further we can get, obviously, the better off we're going to be going into the summer and the preseason, God willing.
yeah. I think I asked about the spring now just because it dawns on me, or I realized, like, really top-notch programs really do put a great emphasis in the spring, and sort of how they use that as almost like a stepping stool for the fall. And I'm just trying to understand how that happens. But so all right, so you lost the 27. You got back. Like, what does your recruiting? Last question. What's your recruiting question? Your recruiting class look like? Is it large? Is it normal? And do you think you have guys who are going to be able to contribute out of the bat? And I just thought of another question that I'll ask you
Yeah.
because this is not the last one. So,
Yeah, no, yeah, I think we're actually pretty ahead, if I'm being honest. With us at John Carroll, we're notoriously last when it comes to getting our financial aid packages out. Why or out?
mm,
I don't know why, but that's just the reality here. So we already do have 4 commits. I do think a thing that's noteworthy is that we are really trying to expand our recruiting footprint more nationally than just regionally, like it was before.
yeah,
After we had lost to Middlebury in the Sweet 16 back in 21, pretty much the first comment I made to our staff when we got back on the bus is that it's time to really start expanding now. I think we've gotten to the point where we know what works for us regionally and what we need to do, but we need to improve that part of our program so we can be competitive with the Middleberries and the Nescacs of the
mm,
world, who are the premier uh, teams and programs
yeah,
and conference in the country, right? So,
mm,
for example, our packages will come out February 15th, and that's when a lot of movement will start happening because obviously people, I heard
yeah.
you say the other day, the top line, you want to know the bottom line.
Bottom
I
line,
think a lot,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
Yeah, I think a
That's
lot of
it.
families are,
I don't
right?
care what.
And
Could, yeah,
yeah, I'm with you, and I agree 100%. So once that comes out next week, I'm sure we'll be hearing some decisions, good or bad. But we have 4 commits already, and just to kind of show you the geographical change already, we have an Eastern PA kid, which is rare. It's usually Western PA.
wow,
So
yeah.
yeah, so
That's
that's
about
one.
by me. What
Um,
club, may
Tam-
I ask?
um,
Penn
man,
Fusion.
no, it's a USYS, but I'm man, the name
Oh, that's
is
okay. Don't
escaping
worry
me.
about it. I caught you
Yeah,
off guard. That's fine.
yeah, it's a
I'm just
National League
curious.
Pro,
Yeah, yeah,
Western or Eastern PA, excuse me.
yeah, yeah.
Um, Jesuit high school in Tampa, Florida. Two, we have
Wow.
a Chicago commit and then a Carmel commit, Carmel,
Wow.
Indiana. So there's not even an Ohio kid right now. And if you look at our roster, it's predominantly, half,
Ohio kid.
60% Ohio. So
Yeah.
I think that plan that we had made the day that we lost in the Sweet 16, where we really were committed to changing that narrative in terms of our footprint, is starting to come to fruition. Um, these wonderful events, whether it's ECNL, USYS, MLS
Yeah.
Next, we're trying to get ourselves out there and compete with these programs that have already been doing this and have been at that level. I was down at the ECNL Sanford event a couple weeks ago. There was 500 college coaches there, and I
Yeah.
100% agree with that number. I don't know if I've ever
Yeah.
seen that many coaches at an
Coaches.
event
Yeah.
like that, and high level, like very good D1
Yeah.
programs that were there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, it's a tall task. I know it's something that, again, we need to find a way to get bigger and better at, but we're
Mm,
attacking it with all force and hoping we can continue
yeah.
this progress as we kind of establish this new way of recruiting.
Yeah. That's interesting because those top programs, most of them, they're first of all they cast a wider net, right? I think just the school by nature academically, but I also so they get that attraction, but I also think kids are now willing to go further to play on better teams, right? Like I think getting somebody from Eastern PA, some point if you end up somebody from Jersey, right? Like that's legit. Like that because hey, I'm going to John Carroll, great school, but I'm also at a top program, right? And I think that's really attractive for ball players. And like I said, the more I don't know what your numbers are, but if you have a pool of 100 because you're just recruiting in Ohio and Western PA and West Virginia or whatever, you have a pool of 100, you just doubled that just by saying, I am going to compete for guys down in Florida. I am going to go look for guys wherever I can and not necessarily care about the distance that they're coming because there's a good chance that they'll come. I mean, they make commitments like that all the time now.
Yeah, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
we know we have to continue to win our backyard. That's no
Yeah.
secret, and we'll keep giving 100% effort there. But we did feel it was time to start getting on planes a little more often than normal and going to these national events and getting around the country because
Yeah.
there's so much good soccer in our region,
Yeah.
and we know that, but there is great soccer outside of it too, and we're trying to tap into that a little bit as
And
well.
the guys you're competing against are there. Like that's the reality.
Yep.
At some point, it's like, well, where is everybody else going? I got to be there, right? Like I think that's really true. All right, so let me ask you: are you getting any transfers or?
There's been a lot of interest. I'm how do I say this? I'm not a big fan of the transfer process because it's just
Mm-hmm.
so different and the portal's
Yeah,
crazy. And
yeah,
I think all of us are realistic that the portal will die down a little bit after the COVID year of eligibility
mm-hmm.
stuff is gone.
Yeah,
But no, we've had quite a bit of interest. Again, I don't really count my chickens until they hatch, kind of thing.
yeah,
Interest is just interest to me, until you show up and actually say you're coming and you're there.
yeah,
But no, we've been very fortunate that there has been quite a few guys who reached out that we do have mutual interest with. I don't really count on things like that because guys,
yeah, yeah.
players of
That's
that
gravy.
caliber,
That's
right,
gravy, right? Like you just, if they
right,
come, they come, and if not, I still got my 4 or 5 guys that I'm bringing in that I know are going to make it be an impact, right? Like, yeah,
absolutely. So yeah,
yeah,
like you said, we want to find good players wherever we can.
yeah,
It's not my favorite route to go, but
yeah,
if it's going to help us and the guys fit into our culture and
yeah.
our system, then why not?
I, I I say it all the time, right? It's very hard to build. It's easy to destroy, and so you got to, especially on transfer. And I don't mean to rain on their parade, but who knows what their experience was like, and whose I don't want to say fault, but who like is it the kid who didn't like the program? Was it the program that didn't like the kid? And you bring in all these variables, and you bring in the wrong kid in the locker room, it doesn't matter how good your team is. If everybody hates each other and they're just
Yeah.
arguing, like you're not going to get anywhere. I just think
Yeah,
that's the reality.
And I think I've heard other coaches say it on your program, but I think a lot of these kids are kids you recruited out of high school anyway, so
Yeah.
you kind of already had a relationship with them.
Yeah.
But the way I kind of look at it personally, which I might be wrong with it, but you know, if you don't take them, you're probably going to play against them. If
Yeah.
you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
you're best to be in that market and see if
Mhm.
it's a fit and see if it's
Yeah.
something that you want to check out. Because
Yeah.
if you close off situations like that, I think one, you kind of motivate that player to come get you later, and
Yeah.
two, you
Yeah.
might have to play against them at some
Yeah.
point. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Who knows? Their choice could be you and Ohio Northern, and they would rather go to
exactly.
you than Ohio Northern. But if you're not going to pay attention to them, Ohio Northern it is. And then next thing you know it, you're beating each other up over in the
Absolutely.
OAC match, right? Like, that's real. Hey, Coach, thank you very much. This was awesome. I love talking to you. I will say it. It's going to get me in trouble. I am a fan. I am a fan. I'm a fan of you. I'm a fan of what you guys do. I'm a fan of what you represent, and and it's always great to talk to you. And I will wear the hat, and the scarf will go up, and yeah. So I'm gonna chop this part. Like I'm gonna chop it out of the, like, yeah, or voiceover. Like, oh, I hate you guys. No, no. Thank you very much. Really do appreciate it. Maybe before the season, we can catch up and we could just talk about what you're thinking and how it's looking and all that kind of stuff during the summer.
No, I'd love to. Again, thank you for having me on. We really appreciate what you do for D3 soccer. And when I say we,
Thank you.
all the coaches, we talk about the channel. We watch the interviews. It's great. And any way we can help and support you in building this and getting bigger and better, we want to do that. I hear you have Travis Wall here coming up for a
Ah,
visit on
holy smokes,
or
I
for
do. I
yeah
think it's on Monday. Monday, I talked to Travis.
yeah
Yeah.
yeah yeah. Make sure you're tough on him. He's one of my best friends in D3. So give him all the tough answers
Really?
or questions
Oh,
and
totally.
you put him on
Maybe
the spot.
I'm going to leave all this stuff up. Like, I'll get out my other hat. That's
Travis
good to
is
know.
he's uh he's a very special talent.
Yeah.
He's a monster in D3. He's one of the good guys. I can't say
Yeah.
enough nice things about him too. But
I,
I can't wait till I get the little ding on my notification that the Travis Wall. I'm gonna go get some popcorn. I'm gonna go hang out and watch that one. I'm excited.
um, I love the way they play. Like,
Oh yeah.
I mean that, and I try to go after guys that I either don't know about or that I watch, and I'm like, there's something about that team. There is something about that team. He does have them playing the right way, and they are impressive.
Do you
They are
remember him as a
impressive.
player by any chance when he was playing in the early 2010s?
No, I wasn't really paying attention back then at that time.
He was incredible. I mean, he's a very unbelievable coach, but he was a really, really good player
He
back
was.
at OWU for Jay Martin back in the day. But yeah, he's a monster in D3. He's
Yeah,
dangerous. We all got to watch out for him.
yeah. I think again, there's names that come across that I watch, and I'm like, no surprise if they win it all. No surprise if they win it all. He's one of them. The St. Olaf is one of them. I'm like, you know what? Get some more guys. They keep working it. They keep testing that ceiling. Before you know it, they have that magical run, right? Because there you go, and they're national champs. I could totally see that. Totally see that.
Absolutely. So could I,
Yeah.
unfortunately for me.
Yeah. Hey, I'm putting you in that list.
Hey, I like that. That's
I'm
good.
putting you in that list because I do think you're operating, you guys are playing at a higher level consistently, and I think that's the big thing is you do it in conference, you're in the NCAA's, you go couple games Sweet 16, right? You're just testing it. At some point you have that breakout and it's like, yeah, I could see John Carroll winning it outright. So there.
We'll keep
Oh
working.
my gosh, I am so dead with my Purple Raider friends, and oh my gosh, I'm done. All right, Coach, thank you very much again.
Thank
Really
you.
do appreciate it, and we'll be in touch.
Awesome. Thank you.
All right, thanks. If you like this show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss future episodes. can also find me on anti-social media on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thanks. This is a message from my Chief Marketing Officer. I think this keeps him happy.